An absolute pleasure to be joined by Aieman Zahabi. Aieman, what's going on, my man?
Nothing, man. I'm glad to be here, Joel. Long time we know each other. I'm happy to be on your show.
Yeah, I see you smiling. I know you're putting in the work. How come you're not bruised
Yeah.
up? Your hands are bruised up?
And I'm working hard to not get hurt. I try to stay pretty as much as possible for as long as possible. I want to fight for the next
Uh,
10 years, you know?
yeah, that's the Faraz Zahabi theory. We had that argument one time about me, him, and Henzo Gracie. About listen, I don't want to get punched in the face. I'm the one doing the punching in the face. I mean, that's the theory. That's fighting when you think about it. Some guys love to engage. Others are like, I don't want to get hit in the face.
I do love to engage. I like to engage without getting hit. I like to finish guys and put them on their backs and drop them, but I try to do it without taking any damage myself.
Well, as you know, a lot of us were super happy when you finally made it to the big show. You made it to the UFC. So that experience is now come and gone. You're no longer the UFC jitters, the very first fight. Walk me through when you got the news that you were fighting in the UFC, and then how it all came about, and how it all that whole experience once it was all said and done.
That was interesting, like I kind of had the feeling that I was gonna get, signed at some point around that after winning my sixth fight. Like I really felt like I've done a lot in the Canadian circuit to get pushed up to the UFC. And um, when I got the call, it was funny because Frost just texted me, "You're signed to the UFC, but don't tell anyone." And I was sitting right next to my wife, and I was like, okay. And then I received another text from Frost's wife saying, "Congrats on signing the UFC." I'm like, what the hell? He told me to keep, not say anything. Like, I guess he told his wife, so I told mine, and it was funny. It was just like I told her after. I'm like, oh man, she found out before you. That was good, but I was super excited, and I was happy to finally get my fight in. And I learned a lot from that first fight. I learned a lot about the intangibles. Like some guys, like he didn't have the slickest boxing. My last opponent, he was more of a grappler, wrestler, grappler. But because he had the willingness to exchange, and the willingness to fight, and to get his hands dirty. He made it a very tough fight for me, and I got to learn a lot about that. Not just to look at people on their skill level, but what do they bring mentally, to the fight? What's their will like?
It was the first fight that you went to a decision, and it's not surprising because once you get to the UFC, the caliber of talent is completely different. You still got to get your feet wet when you're competing, but then you had 15 minutes of tape to look at. You had 15 minutes to break down all your strengths and your opportunities. When you look at that fight as a third-party observer, what did you like, and what did you say, no, we're going to work on this, and we're going to work on that?
There's a couple things I didn't like. I didn't like that I got taken down 2 times. That wasn't great, and I figured out why. After that fight, I watched my fight like every 2 or 3 days. Like I would go in the gym, train, and I go watch my fight and be like, how can I improve what happened in the fight? And I would go back to the gym and try to work on it and go back and see if I've modified what wasn't working for me. Like just contrasting myself in training and what happened in the fight. And I learned a lot about that. And another thing I liked a lot about the fight is that most people didn't know whether or not I can take a punch. And a lot of people were thinking maybe I'm a front runner and that I can't handle the heat in the kitchen and stuff like that. But I showed people that I got poked in the eye and I couldn't see anything in round 3. Like the first 2 rounds, he didn't hit me much in the face. Like those low kicks, they were just his foot. He wasn't committed to low kicks. Like he wasn't kicking me like Aldo kicks the leg or Barboza kicks the leg or somebody like that caliber of low kicks. He was just touching me to get score points. And that didn't really bother me so much. Whereas when I got blinded and I couldn't tell the depth between me and him anymore, and I was having a hard time seeing the punches come in. First time I got damage in the eye in the fight, so like I really had to dig deep, and I was just telling myself, stay close to him. When he hits you, hit him back. When he hits you, hit him back. And then, I finished the third round very strong. I tried to almost finish him at the end of round 3, and I feel like I deserved the win, and it was a great fight, and I got to learn about myself and how much damage I can take and how I react to pressure and a tough fight.
And now you got another fight coming up, obviously, UFC 217. Ricardo Ramos is who you're taking on. What do you know about your opponent?
I know he likes to grapple. He's got most of his wins. I think 6 out of his 10 wins are by submission. And I'm looking forward to fighting him. I'm excited about it. He's got good flying knees and jump kicks, and he does like a lot of different things standing up, very Muay Thai-ish. So I'm looking to stop him from doing any of those things. And dismantle his game first, and then finish him, man. I really want to get that finish. Like I don't train to win fights. Like winning the last fight was great. Like I'm convinced I won. Like, I know they gave him 1 round, but I really don't. I think I won every round. That might be a little biased or whatever. But finishing is better than decision. And like just the feeling you take home when you finish somebody, there's nothing like it. Going to decision is cool. It's all right. But it's nothing like finishing somebody. So that's what I'm looking forward to do. November 4th at Madison Square Garden.
Walk us through what it's like dealing with Faraz. Obviously, he's well known globally as one of the best mixed martial arts trainers out there. Obviously, has a fantastic Muay Thai background, very cerebral. For those that don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Faraz and I have had many a philosophical conversation about stuff outside of MMA. Whenever with either the Zahabis, it's not all about MMA. There's a world outside of MMA, but you two being brothers, I know there's a third brother, but you two being brothers in the MMA landscape, what's it like working with your brother, knowing who he is, and then he's got to coach you and realizing, listen, he's not my brother right now. He's my coach. He's my trainer. Or is it always like, hey, listen, for us, settle down?
No, no, never like that. You know, I don't really. We never pay attention to each other's accolades. You know, like nothing's changed. Even now I'm a UFC fighter, it doesn't change our relationship. Him being GSP's coach or whoever's coach, you know, all these superstars that he helps train, Vitor Belfort now, all these big names. You know, we're still brothers, and I still know who he is, man. I know who he is from when we were nothing, and I feel like that's good that we keep the relationship the same. Growing up, he was always like a father figure to me. He always trained me, always took care of me, you know, helped me with schoolwork, anything I ever needed. So we always have a great relationship. Most of the time, he just prefers when I just say yes, sir, and not much talk from my end. More like yes, sir, and I've heard the command. Okay, I will do it. This and that. So he just do a lot of the thinking, but I do a lot of the thinking for myself too, and I come up with my own game plan and strategies that I pitch by him, and we work it out and we see what works fight week, you know.
In terms of when it's time, I mean, he's always going to be the bigger brother. Do you ever see him looking over at someone when you're sparring at the gym and he's kind of like, don't do that to my brother? Or is it just simply, you know what? Nah, listen, Aieman's on his own, man, fighter.
No, he doesn't do that. Like, plus I've been training since I was 15. Like, I protect myself pretty well with anybody near my weight. You know, like I spar guys, you know, 145, 155. I handle myself pretty well, and the guys are super respectful at the gym. Like, we never had any rough training. Like when the guys are heavier, like let's say I spar 155er, he's not hitting me the same when he spars another 55er. He spars me like I'm a 35er, and they hold back a bit, and so I respect things. Because don't forget, there's always somebody bigger. And people love me, man. So if I need, you know, Francis Carmon to come in and set someone straight or whatever, we can make it happen. But no, at the gym, it's all friendly. And I don't think anybody's ever really had a bad time coming to spar with us. And my brother knows I can protect myself. Most of the time, he's got to tell me to chill out. You know, I mean, I hit hard, man.
Well, no doubt, no doubt. Who's a bigger practical joker, you or for us?
Definitely for us. Yeah, we're both pretty serious, but he makes more jokes more often.
It's hard to take him seriously sometimes, because sometimes when we're having the conversation, I'm like, is he being serious with me again? What's wrong with this guy? So let me ask you this. You guys have always traveled together. You traveled the globe together. You traveled around. Do you ever get nervous with Faraz in the airport? Because he makes me extremely nervous. He embarrasses me in front of customs and security.
I try to make airplane jokes, but he hates them because he's very afraid of flying. That's why he doesn't really go overseas very often. You know, mostly he just stays like North America, short flights, or sometimes if you're fighting North America, he'll take a train or a bus. Like, he hates flying. But I remember one time me and Louis Sanadakis were making like airplane crashing jokes. Oh man, we got it when we landed. But no, he's a sweet guy. I love traveling with him.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of setting up the training camp, how long have you been training for this fight here? Has it been typical 8 to 10 weeks? Is it a bit longer?
It was a bit longer because after my fight in February, I had thought I was gonna fight in July. So they had asked me if I would fight in July and then September, and I said yes. But it was like nothing official, you know. It was just like, oh, how would you like the rest of the year to go? And we kind of just said like a general outline of what I would want to do. So I was preparing myself like to get in shape and, you know, be well conditioned for July, and then it didn't come by. Then August, and then September, and then boom, he just emailed me saying November 4th you're fighting Ramos. So yeah, for sure, down. I didn't even, you know, I like that I didn't even have to ask for it, and like he put me on a big card. It was, you know, it was a big layoff between February and November, but I feel like you know, Sean Shelby really made it up to me, and because you know, fighting on the same card with George is something I've always wanted to do. I've been looking up to him since I was 15 years old, so. It's nice to be on the same card, you know, not the same level of respect. Like he's the main event, he's fighting for the belt. I'm just starting, but it's nice to have been like have the chance to maybe he passes the torch on to me.
Absolutely. That's one of the questions I get asked all the time, Aieman. What's George St. Pierre like, Joe? Tell me. Is he the way we see him on cameras, the way we see him on radio? And I tell people all the time, pretty much what you see is what you get. George is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Anyone ever ask you that question? What's George St. Pierre really like?
Yeah, people ask me that all the time. You know, he's probably one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet. He takes care of his friends, family, and his inner circle super well. I've barely ever seen him reject a picture or an autograph from anyone that asks him at any time, whether we're in a club, he's pumping gas, or wherever we are, whatever we're doing. He's super polite, you know, and he knows how to be respectful from the karate he's learned, his martial arts, and all his training he's ever done. And he brings that in the cage, outside the cage. He's always prepares his best, and he's super well disciplined. And that's who you get. You know, he's actually pretty funny. And something people don't know is if you're gonna play video games with him, he talks a lot of crap. Okay? He's the Michael Bisping when it comes to video games. He'll let you know what's up.
Yeah, I did a Nintendo Switch appearance with him here in Toronto, and he was talking trash to every single one of the people in the tournament, competitors, media. So I got to see that for the first time. So that is George.
Yeah, he had invited us over to play after he got his Nintendo. After doing that whole thing, he got his own Switch, and he's telling me, he's like, I was born in the 80s. I'm going to kill you in Street Fighter. And I'm like, get out of here, George. You can't kill me. You know who I am. You know who my brothers are. Yeah, long story short, we had a great time.
Yeah, so you're seeing him now, though. Like, I mean, I at the press conference last Friday in Toronto, I saw that, you know, you're starting to see a little bit of Michael Bisping sort of almost getting under George's skin, despite the fact that George has already seen it and heard it, the Diaz fight, the Koscheck fight, and the Trigg fight, and the Dan Hardy fight. There is something about George that I'm noticing where he's kind of like, this guy's annoying me. Are you getting the same sense?
Yeah, and I feel terrible for Bisping. The more you annoy George, the more wrath of his you're going to feel. Like anybody, the more people have talked bad about George, the more they were punished in the fight. Like, I don't know who talked, even like, when BJ Penn and George St. Pierre did the primetime, I don't know if you remember that. And BJ was talking mad stuff about George, like he's a quitter, he doesn't have heart, he doesn't have a chin, he has all this stuff. Then he started talking about my brother, what he can go do in his hotel room after the fight. You know what I mean? He was talking so much stuff, and it fueled George more. Not only was he talking about him, he was talking about my brother and my George's team. George wanted to decapitate him, and it was one of the only times BJ ever quit in between rounds. He couldn't even continue fighting. He had to quit in between rounds. I'm just saying, the more Bisping talks trash, the more fuel he's giving George to come in there and finish him. And I'm really hoping that he finishes him, whether it's a submission, a knockout, or having Bisping quit for all the trash he's been talking. I feel like the more you talk bad about George, the more fuel you give him.
Are you the same way? Someone talks trash to you, you think, you know what, yeah, okay, I'm going to make you pay? Or is it just a matter of, look, we're fighting, we got 50 minutes that we're scheduled to be violent with each other, it happens, it happens?
I don't know. The one time, I haven't fought anybody who talked trash to me except for one time I fought a guy, I think his name was Jeremy DeCheria, and he kept talking about how I'm worthless and I've just got a name and I haven't earned anything. Even at the weigh-ins, he came with a shirt that said, earned, not given, all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. I knocked him out in 18 seconds. I don't know if it had anything to do with the trash talk, but I put him away quick, you know?
That's a question you probably get a lot, because you have the Zahabi last name, because it's a lineage. Do people ask you that a lot about, oh, you know what, you're just Faraz's brother, you're a nobody? Or is it just like, you know what, you're lucky to be a Zahabi? Or how do you deal with all that? Because I know what it's like when I one time met some of the Marleys, and their father was Bob Marley, and their answer was pretty cool. It's like, no, I'm not using my father's name. I'm on my father's shoulders. He's carrying me to where I need to be. It's like, oh, wow, that was pretty cool. What about yourself with the Zahabi last name?
Yeah, no, it's kind of exactly like that. You know, you stand on the shoulder of giants to achieve more, you know, and it makes a lot of sense to me what they said. You know, like, it'd be naive to say that, like, my name doesn't bring me any, you know, a little extra more attention. People use it, like Frost's younger brother, blah, 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 to bring attention to me. But in the end of the day, I fought my fights myself. In the cage, it was me in there. I knocked those guys out. I submitted those guys. And I did more than what was expected of me. You know, I could have went in there and had 6 3-round decisions, you know, but I didn't. I finished everybody in the first round. I did exactly what people were expecting of me, maybe a little bit more. And I'm going to continue to put myself to a high standard so that eventually it'll be just me. You know, maybe one day it'll be like, oh, that's Aieman's brother. We'll be talking about for us. You know?
Right? Exactly.
I can't wait for that day.
Perfect. Yeah, man, you never know if that belt ever gets wrapped around your waist. There you go. All right, before we let you go, you mentioned there's some people that you would like to thank.
Yeah, I want to thank my cousin Sam Zahabi for sponsoring me this year. If anybody's looking to buy a high-end car in Laval or Montreal, hit us up at Rural Automobiles. And I want to thank Robbie Stein and my friend Carl Carter for also sponsoring me this year.